Buenos dias, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming. You might not think it to look at me, but my background is a British family of the Royal Navy. And the examination for captaincy in the Navy used to be a very demanding one. You can read it in the novels of Forrester, and maybe some of you have read Jack Aubrey, getting the nautical commission. Came a day when a young man was sitting for his exam, and he was asked what he would do if a great wind got up and was blowing him towards the rocks. And he said he would tack to starboard and pile on extra sail. They said the admirals, what if the wind continues to blow you towards the rocks? And they're on the port side. He said, I continue to tack to starboard and I'd add another mainsail, or stud sail. And they asked him the question again, and he gave the same answer. And finally, one of the admirals said, where are you getting all this sail from? And the young captain-to-be said, the same place you're getting all that wind from. The relevance of my story, which you must already be asking yourself about, is this. What matters is not what you think, but how you think. And all the discoveries have been made, and all the enlightenment that's come to us is from the scientific and the philosophical method, not that of a priori assumptions of faith or the belief that wisdom comes from revelation. So now we know what the church used to tell us wasn't possible, which is that we are a primate species produced by evolution on an earth where 99.9% of all species hitherto, I won't say created, that have hitherto appeared, have already become extinct. And now a good number of religious people will now accept that, but it took them a while. And you can see the process by which they try and explain things away and then try and take credit for them. At first it was argued that God had put the fossil bones in the rock so people's faith could be tested. Nice try. Didn't last long. Then the various attempts, which still go on, to try and ban the good news of evolution. And then now many Christians, and some Christian authorities, and some Jewish ones too, say, no, of course it did all happen, and it's amazing to look at the evidence and the extraordinary scope and variety and even beauty of it. In fact, come to think of it, it proves that God must have been even cleverer than we thought. Now you'll notice that there's something completely useless about this argument. It doesn't teach you anything, and it cannot be falsified. And an argument that supposedly explains everything invariably explains nothing at all. The physicist who discovered the Big Bang, I'm moving from evolution now, was actually a Catholic priest in holy orders and a professor at the University of Louvain. And after his quarrel with Einstein about general relativity and his hypothesis of the Big Bang, he went to the Pope and he said, look, this is how I think everything began. In fact, I think it's a sure thing. And it's very important. And the Pope said, well, if you're right, I can have it taught as dogma in the schools, if you like, so everybody has to believe it. Now, you see again the difference of method and approach. That wouldn't have been a gain for the theory of relativity or for the study of physics, to have it preached as revealed truth. We still don't know a great deal about what happened in the first instance of our cosmos. We still don't know quite how the quantum works. We know it does, we don't quite know why. And therefore, I'm going to argue in the time I have that the late, great Stephen Jay Gould, a non-believer, was wrong when he said that religion and science can be made compatible. I'm very glad that there's a counter up there. I wish you could keep your eye on it as well. Every single second, a sun, a star, like our own, the equivalent of our own, blows up and goes out. That happens every second, okay? If I keep to time, see if you can imagine this. Our brains aren't really constructed to imagine it very well. If I keep to my time, 540 great stars and suns will have vanished from the cosmos. It's a sobering thought. We're fortunate in being around to observe the continuing effects of the Big Bang and the mass destruction that it's unleashed. Future generations, if there are enough of them, won't be able to observe it so well. Why is that? Because as the Hubble telescope has shown us, the man for whom the telescope was named, Edwin Hubble, was slightly wrong. He knew the Big Bang was still going on. He knew the universe was still expanding. But he thought the universe rate of expansion would start to slow. What's been discovered by studying the red light shift is to the contrary. It's blowing apart much faster than we thought, and with huge, massive swathes of actual current and potential and future destruction. Soon, two galaxies, you can already see it in the night sky. You can see the future in the sky already, not as a vision, not as a revelation, not as an omen or a portent. You can see the Andromeda galaxy coming towards you. The collision between our galaxy and Andromeda is a certainty. It's inscribed in all the laws of physics. We know it's coming. It'll destroy some stars, but it'll probably succeed in making an amalgamation. May even become the only remaining galaxy. See if you think that religion is any help to you in considering that very real and important fact. A little while before this momentous event, I'm sorry to have to report, our own star will be disqualified from taking part in the grand merger because it, along with the 540 suns that will be lost to us in the course of my remarks, will blow up and swell up and burn out, and joining its 540 predecessors. And in more proximate news, what I might call more local, more suburban news, the luminosity of our sun is increasing at a very alarming rate, and in an easily foreseeable future, the temperature of our little planet will become that of Venus. In other words, it will be completely uninhabitable. And that will be a small, but obviously to us very interesting development, and it will complete a grand slam. So far, all the other planets in our tiny suburb of a solar system are not conditioned to support life. They're either much too cold or much too hot, as large areas of our Earth are already much too hot and much too cold. Soon we'll join the too hot club, and that'll be a complete shutdown. And some people tell you that our universe and our cosmos was fine-tuned for existence, just so we could be here. Now, on truth claims, nothing I've said could be overthrown by any evidence. All we'll find out is more about it. We don't say on non-truth claims or faith claims that we know when we don't. I'm sorry, Dinesh, atheists do not say we know there is no God. We say, to the contrary, no argument and no evidence has ever been adduced that we consider to be persuasive. There's no reason to believe in evidence or argument, ontology or science. The same with the afterlife. Of course we don't say that we know there isn't one. We say that we don't know anyone who can bring any reason to think that there is. This is a very important distinction, and it's very regrettable that you miss it. And I'm sorry to say, Dinesh, that the immediate loser in an argument about things of which we can and can't be certain, where the only thing that is certain in these laws is the principle of uncertainty, the immediate loser, the man who has to leave the island, sorry Dinesh again, right away almost, is the one who says, I already know all I need to know. I already have all the information I need. Indeed, I've been given it by a supernatural body. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but when I hear people on the bus saying that they're talking to God, well, what do? Do you move closer to that person, or am I right in thinking you edge slightly away? I think that's a very good thing. I won't be able to complete everything I wanted to say. I've saved a bit for the next 4 minutes. The argument that some finally adduce against the laws of physics and the heat death of our universe is, well, don't spread the news because it would lead people to despair. I don't want anyone to despair. We have a number of consolations. We have our own solidarity, we have love, we have literature, we have our duties to each other. What leads to despair is to live the only life one has, being told what to do by despots and crackpots and pseudoscientists who claim the right to order us around in the name of God. Humanity has to outgrow and transcend that oldest of all the tyrannies. Thank you very much. Honestly, Dinesh, what complete piffle you're allowing yourself today. Science will tell you, scientists will tell you in advance of what it would take to disprove their belief. A great biologist of J.B.S. Haldane, his name, was once asked, okay, what would it take for you to stop believing in evolution by natural selection and random mutations? That rabbits' bones in the Precambrian layer would be pretty decisive. We'd have to give up on that if that was so. Einstein said, if my theory works, there will be an eclipse off the west coast of Africa at exactly this time, not exactly an eclipse, a solar event, describable in advance, off the coast of Africa at this time and place, and it did happen. The theory was not considered scientific until then. Have you heard, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, anything like that from the other side? To say, this is what it would take to make me stop believing in something which I believe to be true without any evidence at all? No. Nor did they have the courage to use the following words: revelation, salvation, the conquest of death. To be religious is to be a theist. To believe in God is to be a deist. Deists don't believe that God intervenes. Theists do. Did you hear any claims of divine intervention from the other side? Did they have the moral courage to say that you can live eternally, perhaps if you only join one church, but a special one, but you can live eternally if you have enough faith? No. Do they believe it themselves? I certainly hope not. Do they allow in any of their presentations, any of their amazing presentations, that they are making extraordinary claims? They're making supernatural and superhuman and divine claims. They're claiming to know God, what God wants of you, what he wants you to eat, who he wants you to sleep with, in what position, on what days of the week you should eat this or that, what animals you should avoid devouring. They claim to know something that we claim is not knowable. Now, which of those claims is the more plausible? And they don't concede that extraordinary claims involve extraordinary evidence, which is why evidence is such a casual thing with them. However, we do have extraordinary evidence that I laid out earlier of how our cosmos originated and how our DNA has been found to be sequenced. And some of these things are lovely to contemplate, and some of them are rather sobering. But none of them require a God. Now, you reflect again on what I said about the death of a sun every second, about the impending collision of the galaxies, about the rapid expansion rate of the Big Bang, and you ask yourself, I can't tell you this isn't happening without a purpose. I certainly don't have enough knowledge to say that, but I can say with reasonable certainty, I don't think all this was undertaken, this vast creative destruction, so that one primate species on one small planet could hear the Pope telling them that AIDS may be bad, but that condoms are worse. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what could be more self-flattering, pathetic, and yes, superstitious than that? I'm going to close with a wager. If those of you on the other side of this argument, who've already voted, think that religion makes people behave better, you'll have to answer this question. And I'll be here afterwards. I've asked it many times in public to many religious authorities. You have to name a moral action taken or a moral thought or statement made by a believer that I could not make because I'm an unbeliever. You have to show there's some relationship between morality and faith. You won't be able to do it. Whereas I can tell you, in reply to Rabbi Shmuley's disgusting innuendo, Adolf Hitler's first treaty was with the Pope, and they both stuck to it. Adolf Hitler's birthday was celebrated in every pulpit in Germany every year. Adolf Hitler told the cardinals of Germany he was only doing to them what the church had, to the Jews, what the church had done to the Jews for many centuries, and he was more or less right. And it's disgusting to be told he had Darwinian authority for that. I rest my case. Thank you. Why would it matter if we blew it up? It belongs to God. He knows his own. He knows who's going to heaven and hell. Look, hard to know where to begin. The American Anti-Slavery Society was founded by people like Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin and other secularists and skeptics at a time when the whole justification for slavery, north and south and across the seas, was that it was validated by the Bible, which it is. Dinesh didn't attempt to deal with that question. I submit that if we knew half of what we know now about physics, about biology and astronomy, the Abrahamic religions couldn't be founded in this day. None of them could be founded and believed in by people who knew what we now know. The human species is, let's say, at least 100,000 years old. It's probably much older, maybe a quarter of a million years. You have to believe this to believe in Abrahamic religion. You have to believe the following, that for, let's call it 100,000 years, humanity is born, doesn't live long, mostly dies in childbirth, dies of its teeth, dies in terrible wars, famines, plagues, dies in fear because it doesn't know why there are volcanoes, doesn't know why there are plagues, doesn't know why there are earthquakes or tsunamis. Fear, misery, shame, terror, cruelty of all kinds. And for the first 97,000 of those years, heaven watches like this. But then after 97,000 years of it decides, we can't let this go on, we'll have to intervene. But only in the most barbaric and backward parts of the Middle East will we show our face to people who can't read, who are terrified, who are ignorant, who live basically with and like animals. Now, I submit that whatever may be the case, whatever is true, whatever may remain to us to find out, and as Socrates says, the great definition of wisdom is having some idea of how ignorant you are, whatever the outcome is, morally, scientifically, or logically, that cannot have been the case. Religion is false. I take my stand. Thank you.